Hi guys, today we're discussing the set matrix 0 problem. So what we have to do over here is that we are given a 2D matrix with some elements, some boxes which are 0, and we have to sort of make the entire row and column that box is in 0. Okay, so as you can see over here, this and this is 0, so this entire row and these two columns become 0. For this, its respective row and respective column, all of them have to become 0. Okay, so that's the problem, and you should come up with your own approaches to solve this. Okay, we're going to discuss two approaches today, so let's get started. The first approach is that you kind of collect all the coordinates, okay, whose value is 0, and you store them in a list. So here 0 coordinates are 0, 0, then 0, 3 and 2, 2. Okay, and once you have that, you kind of make the whole row and column 0. Okay, so this is a super intuitive approach, I think. Okay, so this is kind of how you store these 0 coordinates, and then you just have to make the rows and columns 0. Start looking at the code of this approach. First of all, we're going to need our list of integers. Okay, list of integers, yes, and we're going to name it L, but it is basically our 0 coordinates list, and it's going to be a new array list. Awesome. This is just for the for loops that we're going to have. Zero dot length. Okay, so what we're going to do is traverse the matrix, right, and for each we're going to find if it's 0 or not, right? Perfect. So int r is equal to 0 to r is less than rows r plus plus. Same for columns. For int c is equal to 0. Also, if you've understood the approach, then you could try attempting it yourself, or maybe if you haven't, then we can look at the code so that it's clear. So as we see, we are traversing the matrix, and we are checking that if matrix r comma c is equal to 0, then we want to store this guy, right? So we're going to make the list integers, and we're going to call it the inner list. Okay, basically it's the coordinate. Okay, and we're going to inner list dot add I and inner list. So every time we know that the 0th element in these inner lists is the I, and then the first one is j. Perfect. And we're going to add this entire list into our parent list. Perfect. Alright, so this is taken care of, and now if we basically print our list, right, we're going to get this 0 coordinate list. So let's just quickly look at that. Okay, okay, what did I do wrong over here? Oh, okay, it's not I comma j, we are using r comma c, right? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so see, over here we get our 1 comma 1. Okay, basically over here, if you see, okay, this is the first example. Okay, so here 1 comma 1 is your 0th element, and here it should be 0 comma 0 and 0 comma 3, right? So you see 0 comma 0 and 0 comma 3. So cool, this is our desired list. Okay, so we have the coordinates. Now we just have to make their rows and columns 0. So how should we do that? We're gonna go inside the list first of all. Okay, so we're gonna deal with 1 0 at a time. Okay, list of integers, inner list, so let's call it IL in L. Okay, for every list in this, int I is equal to the first coordinate, so that is going to be IL dot get. Since this is a array list, we are going to use get and add, right? And what are we going to do over here? Here we're going to do the 0th element. Okay, so the 0th element, and int j is equal to IL dot get the first element. Awesome. So we have our I and j. Now what do we want to do is that for int I is equal to, no, not I, we'll have to have something else. K is equal to 0 to k is, so I is our row. Okay, this row. So we want to go from the 0th to the end. So k is less than calls k plus plus. If matrix, each of these we are checking, our row is remaining constant, that is I, matrix I comma k is not equal to 0, then we want to make it 0. Matrix I comma k is equal to 0. Alright, perfect, awesome. And the same thing we are going to do for the columns. Okay, so for the column to be 0, we have to check each row. Okay, so we're going to check each rows, and here our k is gonna change, that is the row is gonna change and column is gonna remain constant. And if it is not like that, if it is not 0, then we are going to make it 0. Amazing. So this, as far as I know, is our code, is our solution. It should work. Let's see if we have made any other silly errors. Awesome. So that works. So we can go ahead and submit it. And bam, that's our submission. But as you can see, it is not beating 100%. So there can be something that we do, some other approach that we can think of, so that we can beat all of the 100%. And memory wise, it's decent. Okay, awesome. So this is our first approach. I hope we've understood it. Now let's go back to the second approach that we were talking about. Okay, so this is the second approach. And over here what we do is that, let's just consider, there are a lot of things that we're doing, but the main concept, the core concept, ignore everything, the core concept that we have lies over here. So we have this guy which is 0. Okay, and what we're going to do is, corresponding to this guy, whichever element is there in its respective column in the first row, we're going to make that 0, and we're going to do the same with the row. So corresponding row, first column, make this guy 0. And once we have collected all these zeros, we're going to just consider these and go down, go across and make all of them 0. Okay, so this was the case first, then we have made these 0, and once we have that, we are going to make their respective columns and their respective rows 0. Another thing that we need to take care of is that if there are originally any zeros in this row and in this column, because we are crafting like new zeros over here, right? So we need to keep track of original zeros as well. Since we have these original zeros over here, we want to make the first column and the first row, all of it 0 as well. So all of it 0, and this is our solution. So this is our journey from this matrix to this matrix. Okay, so that's the main thing here. If this was also 0, okay, if this was also 0, then we would also make this and this 2 and 5 0. Okay, so we would have 2 and 5 0. And then we would make their rows and their columns 0 too. Perfect. So that's what we are doing in this approach. So yeah, I had coded it a bit, but yeah. So let's look at this approach. Let's try to type it ourselves, code it ourselves. Yep. Okay, where do we begin? We first start with our int rows is equal to matrix dot length. How convenient. And int columns is equal to matrix dot length. Now what we have is that we want to see if there are originally any zeros in our first column and first row. That's why we are going to have two of these boolean values, that is first row has 0, okay, that is equal to false. Originally these are going to be equal to false, and the same with the first column. Okay, first column has 0, this is also equal to false. Cool. Once we have this, we are going to check, right? What do we want to do? Check if first row has zeros. So first row has zeros, so we are going to go for int, where do we want to go? In the column, int c is equal to 0, c is less than calls c plus plus. If matrix 0 comma c is equal to 0, then what do we want? First row. First row has, this would be so much faster in VS Code. First row has 0 is equal to true. And then we want to break it, because even if there is 1 0 in the row or column, then we want to make the entire row or column 0 itself. Okay, so that doesn't matter. Okay, and the same we are going to do for column. So much of the code will remain same except the for loop part of it and this thing. Okay, so check if first column has zeros, r is equal to 0 and r is less than rows. Okay, I might as well have coded the entire thing. And here we're going to change the r's, we're going to keep the c constant, we're just checking for the 0th column has zeros, true. Okay, so this is the first part of the code. Now let's get to the main part of it. Okay, so now we're going to check for int r is equal to 1. See, first row and first column have been taken care of. Now we want to check for rest of this. Okay, so this part of it, wait, this part of it. Okay, so for this part we are starting from row from column 1 and from row 1, okay, till the end. So from row 1 till the end, and same with for int column is equal to 1, column is less than cols c++. Now what do we want to check here? If matrix r comma c is equal to 0, then we want to make, okay, see, this was 0, then we want to make its respective row and column 0, right, the first row and first column element. Okay, so for that what will we do? We'll say matrix, okay, so 0, and we want to make 3 0. Okay, so 3 0 means our row is 0 and column is the same as this tile. Okay, so column is the same as this tile, this is equal to 0. Similarly for 9 we will make matrix r comma 0 is equal to 0. Awesome. So now we have the first row made. Okay, so the first row, the necessary tags for it are done. Now we just want to make them 0. So for int, okay, so first let's take care of this guy, this side. Okay, so for int r is equal to 0, no, r is remaining same, c is changing. So for int c is equal to 0, c is less than cols c++, if matrix 0 comma c is equal to 0, right, we want to make its entire this 0. So for int r is equal to, we are going to go from 1 to r is less than rows. So see, here through this we will find that our c is 2. Okay, in this case 0 1 2 2. Now we want to keep 2 same and we want to make all of these 0. So we want to start from row 1. So from row 1 till the end, okay, we are going to do matrix, we are going to change the rows, we are going to keep the column same, and we are going to make it 0. Okay, also here we can do the same thing. If matrix this, wait a minute, this is not equal to 0, then you want to make it 0. Perfect. So this is what you're doing for your column, and same thing we will do for our row. R is equal to 0, r is less than rows, r plus plus, matrix. Now over here r is remaining, r is changing and column is remaining constant. Is that right? Yeah, we are going from here, yes. And here we are going to check our column. Oops. Yeah, column cols c++. If matrix rc is not equal to 0, then change it. Okay, looks good. And now what we have to do is that if these things aren't there, then we have to change them too. Okay, so this till here we are done. Now this last red part we have to do. Okay, so how do we do that? If first row has 0, then first row has 0. Okay, then we want to make that row 0, right? So for int c is equal to 0, c is less than calls c plus plus matrix. Again over here the same thing we are doing, sort of. If matrix, but r is 0 only over here. Okay, first row has 0, 0. Oops. Okay, I think that looks good. I hope this is correct. I am starting to doubt it. Okay, if first column has 0 and int r is equal to 0, r is less than rows r plus plus okay, so that's pretty much our code. Let's run it and see if there are any errors. Okay, that's very sad. Right, so we were getting a wrong answer because because of this. So our columns are matrix 0 dot length, right? 0 dot length. Okay, and then it works. Okay, so let's quickly revise this code before submitting it first. Okay, what did we do? Let's comment it first. So first we checked if first row has 0, if second, like if first column has 0. Next what we're doing over here is that we are checking 0 tiles. Okay, and making respective first row and column element 0. Okay, the changing 3 and 9 part. Okay, perfect. This is what we are doing. Next we are checking first row zeros and changing their column to 0. Okay, like over here we are checking that there is a 0 over here, so let's make the whole thing 0. That's why we are going from r is equal to 1 to the end of it. And same over here, we are checking the column. So you see there's a lot of dual stuff that we are doing. Okay, we do the same thing for the row, same thing for the column. Check if first column zeros, checking first column zeros and changing their row to 0. Amazing. And here we are checking that originally first row had 0, then make all of it 0. Perfect. And over here also OG first column had 0, make it 0, make all of it 0. Awesome. So that's our code, and I hope you've understood it. Thanks for watching.